Welcome to Fighting Stats, the ultimate channel for UFC fans who love statistics and betting breakdowns. I'm your host, Art C, and today I'll be getting you ready for the upcoming UFC fight. Here at FightingStats.com, we have exclusive UFC stats not available anywhere else. We can tell you how often a fighter throws that left hook or that right jab in southpaw, how often they move backwards, or how often they throw kicks. We have all of that information, but that is not all. In this series, I'll be watching tape and I'll give you my real-time analysis on how the fight's going to go. I'm going to watch for fighter strengths, weaknesses, tendencies, and overall strategies to give you my prediction on how I think the fight is going to go and ultimately who's going to win. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome to Fighting Stats. Welcome back to Fighting Stats. I'm your host, Artsy, and today we are breaking down the UFC Perry co-main event between Nassourdine Imavov and Brendan Allen. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go into our fighting stats. You don't have to go anywhere else for stats. We have them all here. So we're going to go into the detailed numbers, tell you what the numbers say, and then I'll give you my prediction on how I think the fight is going to go. And I might even tell you our best bet on this card here. So without further ado, let's dive right into the numbers here. So bringing up our fighting stats, tail of the tape, we have Nassourdine Imavov on the blue side, Brendan Allen here on the red side. So looks like Imavov going to have about a 1-inch height advantage. The reach advantage is going to be about the same. Both guys fighting from orthodox and about the same age there as well. So Nassourdine Imavov 6-2-1 in the UFC, 50% of his wins coming from KO, 33% from decision. Does have 2 losses, both coming from decision there. The draw messing up some of the calculations there. So on the Brendan Allen side, he's 12-2 in the UFC, 8% of his wins coming from KO, 58% of his wins coming from submission, and 33% from a decision there. He does have 2 losses, both of them coming from KO as well. Let's move on to the offensive striking. So this is our detailed striking report for Nassourdine Imavov. Mainly a striker here, but 71% of his strikes going to be landed at a distance, 12% on the ground there, and about 17% in the clinch. In terms of his target breakdown, does go to the head about 77% of the time, goes to the body at 15% of the time, and legs 7% of the time. Decent striking accuracy at 48% head strike accuracy, 77% body strike accuracy, and 87% leg kick accuracy there. And then you can see his striking output by round actually does trend upwards, landing about 20 strikes in round 1, up to 21 in round 2, 25 in round 3, a little bit of drop off in round 4 going to 19, and then 27 strikes landed in round number 5. Not to worry though, this is a 3-round fight there, so just worth noting that not going 5 rounds. Overall, he does have 1 knockdown in the UFC, that coming in the first round overall. And then you can see these strikes landed by area by round. He does go to the head, landing about 12 strikes in round 1, 16 in round 2, and 17 in round 3 in terms of head strikes landed. In terms of the detailed striking report here, not a huge leg kicker, and against Jerry Cannonier there, landed 5 leg kicks in that fight. Roman Dolidze going 7 of 8 in round 1, 2 of 2 in round 2, so that was the only time he brought out big leg kicks. I guess Chris Curtis there, landing 14 of 14 in round 1 against Chris Curtis, 8 of 10 in round 2. And then again, somebody like Sean Strickland, who's not a big kicker, landed 3 of 4 in round 1, 4 of 4 in round 2, 3 of 3 in round 3 in terms of leg kicks. So overall, in his UFC career, Imavov has thrown 85 leg kicks, 74 of them have landed. Overall, 55% striking accuracy. And again, I wanted to highlight some of these clinching numbers. I'm going to talk about the clinch in a bit there, but overall, 125 clinch strikes thrown to 110 landed there. So let's move on to the defensive striking. So most of the 92% of the strikes landed against Imavov going to be at a distance, 8% in the clinch. Has not absorbed a ground strike, so that's pretty interesting there. 0% strikes absorbed on the ground. In terms of target breakdown, again, 77% of the strikes landed towards the head, 12% to the body, and 11% towards the leg. Decent striking defense, 31% head strike defense, 66% body strike defense, and 75% leg kick defense. So not bad defensive numbers. Strikes absorbed by round, 15 strikes in round number 1, drops down to 10 strikes absorbed in round number 2, and up to 20 in round number 3. And again, it is a 3-round fight there, so keep that in mind. Over his UFC career, Imavov has never been knocked down. So again, pretty good numbers there. It's again, he keeps that distance. He's way outside in range, so understandable. But he has fought a decent number of strikers there, and so worth noting again that he has not been knocked down yet, even though he's fought some high-level strikers. Let's talk about the run there, just in terms of the striking numbers there. Jerry Cannonier, he fought in that last fight. Roman Dolidze, pretty durable. Chris Curtis, a decent boxer. Son Strickland, another boxer. Hakeem Buckley, decent power striker there. Edmund Shabazian, a nice striker. Ian Heinisch, a striker. Phil Haas, and Jordan Williams. So a who's list of strikers. And again, he's fared pretty well there in the UFC, fighting against those type of guys. So let's go over to the Brendan Allen striking, offensive striking here. So 77% of his strikes going to be at a distance, 6% in the clinch, 17% ground strikes. So keep that in mind. 17% of the strikes landed by Brendan Allen going to be on the ground. In terms of his target breakdown, he does go to the head at 77% of the time, 15% to the body, and 8% towards the legs. Offensive striking, decent striking numbers at 40%, 44% head strike accuracy, 82% body strike accuracy, and 93% leg kick accuracy. In terms of his output there, pretty average in terms of not a big fluctuation. 18 strikes landed in rounds 1 and 2, 16 strikes in rounds number 3. It does spike up in round number 4, but again, this is a 3-round fight, so we don't look at those numbers here. Overall, in his UFC career, he does have 3 knockdowns, 2 of them coming in round number 1, 1 of them coming in round number 2. And then the leg kicks, I wanted to highlight some of these leg kicks. Not a huge leg kicker for Brendan Allen, averaging about 3 strikes in round 1, 2 leg kicks in round 2, and 3 in round number 2, averaging 11 to 12 head strikes landed per round for Brendan Allen there as well. So overall, again, the leg kicks about the same as Imavov, throwing 85% leg strikes, landing about 79 of them. The biggest difference for me is these clinch strikes and these ground strikes here. So take a look here. Clinch strikes, he's thrown 48 clinch strikes. Not the best, not the greatest, but he does have 138 ground strikes. So looking at some of these numbers here against Paul Craig, big ground strikes number there, getting them down to the ground. Jacob Malkoun has a decent number there as well. And then going back to 2020 against Kyle Dawkins, big ground strike numbers there. So I'll get into why that sort of is important when we go over to the grappling side of things. On the red defensive striking, so Brendan Allen defensive striking could use some work here. 88% of his strikes absorbed are going to be at a distance, 77% going to be in the clinch, 5% on the ground there. Head target against, 84% of the strikes landed against going to be towards the head. 12% towards the body and 3% towards the legs. In terms of defensive striking, again, 48% of the strikes landed towards the head, gonna land, 72 towards the body, 84% towards the legs. Has been knocked down twice, both of them in round number 2, and the strikes absorbed by round looks like about 17 in round 1, 19 in round number 2, and 13 in round number 3. So it does drop off a little bit in round number 3. Overall, in striking defense, again, he's only been knocked down twice. That was against Sean Strickland in round number 2, which is decent, and that was against Chris Curtis in round number 2 as well. Again, those guys are pretty good boxers. Those guys are training partners. They spar almost every day. So they, again, decent strikers there for Brendan Allen. And again, that was the first time they fought. Again, the rematch Chris Curtis in that last fight. We'll go and watch that fight there. So let's move over to the grappling report. And this is where I think the biggest discrepancy in the fight is for me. Imavov is going to be mostly a French kickboxer, so I really doubt he's going to go for any grappling here. Overall in his career, he averages about 1.2 takedowns, attempted in round number 1, 0.6 in round number 2, 1.5 in round number 3. So overall, 25 takedowns attempted, landed 9 of them. But again, we went through that list of fighters that he's fought. Again, a lot of strikers, so not a ton of grapplers. He can go for the takedowns against those type of guys. I just don't know if he does it here against Brendan Allen. So For example, he took Jerry Cannonier down twice, got him down twice out of 3 attempts. He took Chris Curtis down 3 times out of 4 times for 127 seconds of control time in total against Chris Curtis. So that's a big chunk of his takedowns right there. And then early in his career, he took down Joaquin Buckley in rounds 2 and 3 as well. So again, he can pull out the grappling if he's needed against strikers, but again, in this matchup is a little bit different. So let's take a look at his defensive grappling. Again, I talked about that big list of strikers that he's faced. Not a ton of takedown attempts seen. So on average, he sees about 1.3 takedowns attempted against in round number one. Giving up zero point 0.4, 1.1 in round number two, allowing 0.2, and zero point 0.3 attempts in round number three, allowing 0.2. So on the surface, decent takedown defense numbers, but I just want to dive into it a little bit further. So, in total in his UFC career, he's seen 27 takedown attempts. Only 7 of them have been successful. So, again, decent takedown defense numbers. But let's look at who he's fighting. Again, we talked about that list of strikers. So, Jared Cannonier gets Imavov down 1 of 1 in round number 1 for 125 seconds of control. The next person, Sean Strickland, gets him down in round number 2 for 109 seconds of control. And then before that was Edmund Shabazian in round number 1, got him down for 103 seconds of control. And then Phil Haas got him down 4 times. That was back in 2021 for a decent amount of time, actually losing that fight because of the control numbers there. So in total, he's only been taken down 7 times, but against Phil Haas, against Sean Strickland, against Jerry Cannonier, these guys aren't wrestlers. They're not grapplers. They're no real threat on the ground. They're mainly strikers. They really mix in the takedowns to sort of get you thinking, get you to drop the hands. None of these guys are on the grappling, in my opinion, of a Brendan Allen there. So I think Brendan Allen has a big grappling advantage. So let's take a look at why I think that. On average, he attempts 1.1 takedowns attempted in round number 1, landing about 0.6, and then round 2 it drops off 0.3 in round 2, 0.5 in round number 3. So in total in his UFC career, he's thrown or attempted 32 takedowns in his UFC career, landing 16 of them, so about 50% of the time he's landing takedowns, and a lot of them coming in more of the more recent fights here. So let's take a look at these numbers that dive down a little bit deeper. Chris Curtis, in that last fight there, he attempted 13 takedowns, got Chris Curtis down for about 6 of them there. 77 seconds of control in round 1, 7 in round 2, 123 in round number 3, 84 and 74. So again, Chris Curtis has some of the elite takedown defense, very hard to take down, and Brendan Allen able to get him down 4 times and control him. Paul Craig, another one of those guys, like he's one of those BJJ guys on the back. Brendan Allen not afraid to take Paul Craig down, work some ground and pound, things like that. So just tells you the confidence level of Brendan Allen if you're going to take somebody like Paul Craig down, go down to the ground with him. Andre Muniz got Andre Muniz down, another big grappler there on the ground. Christoph Joku, Jacob Malkoun, decent wrestler. This is going back. Carl Robertson, not a decent grappler there. So of those 16 takedowns, a lot of them are grapplers that he's taken down, a lot of defensive wrestlers. So I think that's the big difference here is that Allen's not afraid to go down to the ground with these guys. I think he holds a big grappling advantage over Imavov, and I'll talk about that just in a second here when I get to the breakdown. I'm just going to fly over the red defensive grappling. I just don't think Imavov is going to get a takedown on Brendan Allen. In total, Allen has seen 27 takedowns. Only 12 of them have been allowed. Looks like 7 of them came to against Jacob Malkoun. Jacob Malkoun getting him down 7 times in that fight. Again, Jacob Malkoun going to be a wrestler. And then again, Sean Strickland, Kyle Dawkins back in the 2020. So I think Allen has improved a little bit in the ground game. And again, he has that advantage there. So let's move over to the Fighting Stats time breakdown. All right, so Nassourdine Imavov, 66% of the time that we watched was spent standing. 25% of the time was spent in the clinch. And what do we have here? 12% on the ground here. So one thing I wanted to bring up, we'll talk about it in the breakdown. I wanted to talk about these clinch numbers. So remember 25% time in the clinch there. So when he's on top, 66% was in back mount. But when Imavov is on bottom, 52% in north-south, 8% inside control, 11% in back mount. So decent numbers there. On the Brendan Allen side, 46% of the fight time was spent standing, 44% of that fight time was spent on the ground. So a different look in terms of the fights Brandon Allen fights compared to Imavov there. So when he's on top there, look, 44% of the time, Brandon Allen is in back mount, 22% of the time is in full guard, 13% in half guard, 11% in side control, and 10% in half full mount. So more than 50% of the time he's either in back mount or full mount. So decent numbers for Brandon Allen when he does get on top. So let's go over to the striking tendencies report. All right, so Nassourdine Imavov going to be mixing it a little bit more on the feet there. 65% of his strikes going to be single strikes, 27% going to be kicks. Does mix in a bunch of variety of strikes. So 22% going to be single jabs, 13% going to be 1-2s, 11% going to be that left hook, and then he likes that left or that low kick, that lead high kick and that lead low kick, amounting for most of the kicks that he's throwing. So keep an eye on that one. So whereas on the Brendan Allen side, 81% of his strikes going to be single strikes, so not a big combo guy. 24% of his strikes going to be kicks. So keep an eye on Imava, again, a striker versus grappler. 27% of his strikes going to be kicks. It does take away that kicking game against Brendan Allen that wants to get the fight down to the ground, so keep that in mind. 22% of the strikes for Brendan Allen, he goes to the straight two. 16% of the time he goes to the jab, and 3% of the time he goes to the left hook. And then he likes the rear kicks there. So 8% of the time he's going to go rear high kick. 7% of the time he's going to go rear low kick. So that's decent numbers there. So all right, so this is how I see the fight going. So I know that Nassourdine Imavov, again, a French kickboxer, he really likes to keep range. He's going to throw a lot of these teeps. He looks at lead high kick that we talked about, lead low kick, mixing up the striking. He's going to be on his bike moving around on the outside. I don't think Brendan Allen's that bad of a striker. Again, he's been knocked down twice, both of his losses coming from KO. But against Sean Strickland, against Chris Curtis, these guys are high-level strikers there as well. So I think Allen is competent on the feet. I think he can be pretty close on the feet if it stays standing. Not a ton of power, only 8% of his wins coming from KO. But again, his bread and butter for Allen is I think he can get the fight down to the ground. And one of the biggest weaknesses I found for Nassourdine Imavov is that he is mainly a striker, but he does get pushed up onto the cage almost every single fight. I sit there taping the fight, and he just doesn't know how to circle off the fight. He's getting pushed off. He's not digging for underhooks. He's not pummeling under. He's not circling off. He just allows himself to get pushed up onto the fence there. So I could see a lot of cage pushing from Brendan Allen, wearing down some control, wearing on the cardio a little bit. But I do think that if the fight goes down to the mat, I do think that Brendan Allen has a huge advantage. And I do go back to, again, the takedown defense of Chris Curtis, able to get Chris Curtis down multiple times. And I really look at the strength of schedule for Nassourdine Imavov. I talked about that whole list of opponents. None of these guys are on the level of Brendan Allen. They're on the ground. A lot of these guys are just pure strikers. So Nassourdine Imavov hasn't really had to deal with the adversity on the ground. And, Brendan Allen, as soon as he gets your back, he's looking for that choke there. So I definitely see a path to victory for Brendan Allen through the grappling. And again, this is going to be a 3-round fight. I don't really know if it favors Allen or Imavov. I would say sort of, it none of them really have cardio concerns, so I think it will come down to the skill set. And I think the gap on the feet between the striking of Imavov to Allen, I think Imavov can be competitive. I think Brendan Allen can be competitive on the feet for the moments that it stays standing. But I think if it does get taken down, Brendan Allen's going to be leaps and bounds better on the ground. Imavov may have been doing some training. He might be able to defend some of the submissions, but I think Allen's going to be able to control him a lot more. I think he has more of a submission threat on the ground. He could get into a dominant position. We talked about more than 50% of the time. Brendan Allen either in mount or back mount there. So I could see a TKO coming from sort of ground and pound, positional TKO sort of thing. But I do think the submission is live. And in a 3-round fight, I do think that the decision for Brendan Allen is also live because, again, he can win a lot of minutes from control. He can win from cage pushing. For Nassourdine Imavov, honestly, I think for him to win, it's going to have to be a combination of big moments where he just damages Brendan Allen on the feet. But again, Nassourdine Imavov only really has one knockdown. He's always moving his feet a lot, doesn't really sit down on his punches. So I know Brendan Allen has been rocked, but either Imavov gets multiple knockdowns or multiple rocks or big moments where they can say he clearly won the fight, or Imavov is going to have to pitch the perfect fight here, stay on his bike, circle the outside, stick and move, jab, move, things like that, keep the fight off the fence, keep the fight off the ground, and win a decision there. So I don't see a ton of knockouts from Imavov. I know he's going to be a striker, but I think the fight probably goes to decision on the Imavov side. And I think Brendan Allen has a lot more finishing equity based on just the submission, the ground time, the ground control. Maybe I'm rating the ground control a little bit too high, and but I have been on the Imavov side. I'll take Imavov against a stationary striker like Jerry Cannonier, but against a grappler, we just haven't seen Imavov have to fight through that adversity, being on the ground bottom. What does he look like in 3 rounds off of his back? Right, we just haven't seen it too much, and I think just Brendan Allen, what he can do with the grappling, just gives me that side. So I got some early I got some early Brendan Allen at plus 210, plus 205 sort of thing. That line's come down just a bit. I think the line's a little bit too wide right now for Nassourdine Imavov. I know he is fighting at home, but give me Brendan Allen, the underdog, to cover this price. I think he's going to win there. So that's my prediction. Let me know in the comments below if you agree, disagree. He is a big underdog, so we're going to see if we can make some plays here, make some money on Brendan Allen as the underdog at UFC Perry. Thanks for watching. My name is Artsy. This is Fighting Stats.
All right, guys. Well, that is it for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this type of content, make sure you smash the like button, hit the subscribe. You'll get notified anytime we put out new content. Listen to this. We just hit a massive parlay for $29,000 at UFC 297. That is one UFC after 296 where we hit a parlay for $82,000. That's back-to-back parlays. We've made $110,000. And how do we do it? We use our exclusive fighting stats, not available anywhere else. Our exclusive fighting stats gives us information, gives us a big edge over the sportsbooks, and tell us what's going to happen within the fights. We post all that information, our breakdowns, our best bets, over at patreon.com/fightingstats. Don't miss out. Make sure you subscribe today. Again, my name is Art C. This is Fighting Stats. Thanks for watching.